Okay, hello there and welcome to this first pilot edition of what's going to be a new podcast called The Contentious Life, where we're going to be discussing lots of issues like trivial and some not so trivial, where, the kind of thing that gets people into debates and, possibly arguments and whatnot. And my name's Sam, and also my co-host and friend is also called Sam. Hello.
Hello. I was just going to say, you run right in there and they're going to think it's a solo show. But I am here, indeed.
Yeah, sorry about that. We've literally just hit record for the first time ever, so we don't know. This might not even be in the edit, so if you're hearing this, you're lucky.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got a couple ideas of things we want to discuss, things we want to talk about. Some of them are trivial. Some of them are a bit more in-depth, a bit more...
Contentious?
A bit more contentious, definitely. But we'll always try and keep it a bit lighthearted and a bit interesting as well. So, yeah. I think I'd like to kick off and talk about your particular topic you think is slightly overrated.
Okay, but let me stop you there. One thing, we should explain that the format of the show so far is that each have two topics, one of which is something we think is overrated, one of which we think is underrated, innit?
Yeah, that sounds really good. That is the basic idea. Maybe we'll even get a guest or two on to come and discuss what they think is overrated and underrated.
Yeah.
Sort of like a Room 101 podcast, but maybe a bit different.
But for now, it's just the two of us, and yes, we're both called Sam.
Two of us.
We're both called Sam. Get over it.
Yeah, definitely. So, So, as I was saying, your particular topic you wanted to talk about, which you think is overrated.
Yes.
I think some people, maybe those who are not really versed in indie film or film, probably not heard of him. So give us a quick rundown of who David Lynch is and what he does.
David Lynch is a film director / auteur, I suppose. I'm sure he'd love that if he heard me say that. Yeah, it's an auteur. But yeah, he makes films and, well, a TV show called Twin Peaks that is quite a cult thing, big cult following, as is all of his films. But I don't know, lots of people really love him, like the sort of intelligentsia, let's call him,
Yeah.
Sort of, pretentious twats.
Yeah, exactly. I can see already that Sam's already got a bit of a bias what he doesn't like about this guy. To be honest, I did some reading, some research, and it does come across that he is quite pretentious and quite artsy for the sake of art, and that's one thing I really dislike. I got to put my hands in the air and say, generally, I'm not a fan of the arts. I do appreciate them. I appreciate music, art, painting. I think it's amazing.
Do you prefer the crafts, do you? Build a nice cabinet or something.
Yeah, I prefer science and physical stuff more than symbolism and that sort of thing, because I think it's all a bit self-righteous, maybe a bit sort of self-serving as well. So
yeah, and I think he's a bit lazy as well, because it's like he's expecting us to do the writing for him, pick up the slack. It's like he's given us half of it and we've got to put the pieces together in our heads.
Yeah. Well, I had a quick look at the plot of one of his particular films. It was Eraserhead.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen Eraserhead?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I had a look at the plot, and I just from reading the first bit of the film, I was thinking, this just sounds like something I'd hate to watch. Give us a bit of an outline of the film, just so people get an idea of what he's about.
Right. Well, here's the problem. I've tried to get into a lot of his films, and I'm still not quite sure what any of them are about. And that's the thing, see?
Yeah.
It's about a strange man with a very tall haircut who has this strange baby that seems hideously deformed, almost like an alien, and it's just about how it sort of takes over almost. It's obviously having a baby is a demanding job, but this one in particular seems to just really sort of, take everything out of him almost and destroy his life.
I did read, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of it's set in space. Is that right?
Is it? It's been a long time since I've seen it now.
I read something about that. I don't know. But it did seem like a lot of obvious symbolism for the sake of symbolism. Just because I can use a metaphor or something symbolic, I will, rather than just having a good story, plot, narrative, whatever.
Yeah, I remember there was this one scene where he was meeting his parents-in-law, and there was a scene about cutting small chickens.
Okay.
And I have no idea what that means, what it meant in the film. Did it have something to do with his baby? Because his baby thing was like wrapped all in bandages, and there's this one scene where he cut all the bandages off, and it was all like bleeding and stuff.
Weird.
I don't know.
Well, he is sort of like classed as a surrealist visual artist.
Yeah.
But that to me is something which I really don't like and I wouldn't choose to watch. But do you think it's okay for people to like it, or do you think it's a bit even patronising for the people who are supposed to watch it?
I don't know, because I consider myself kind of educated and appreciative of this kind of thing, but I just think he goes too far with it. It's just like symbolism for the sake of it, and like especially Twin Peaks. I tried to get into that. I've watched it all, all of it end to end, and I think he was making it up as he went along. I think that's no secret. I think he actually was like, it was like one of those, those drawings where you fold a paper into thirds and one person draws like the head and shoulders, and another person draws like the middle body. It was kind of like a TV version of one of those. There was this character called Bob, who was some sort of evil spirit, and how it came about was he was on set and he saw this guy who was a janitor, and he just liked the look of him and thought, yeah, I'm gonna put you in the show and you're gonna be like this evil spirit called Bob. And it was just like everything about the show just came about like that, and I think it shows.
I think from what you're describing there, the reason that I would pick up straight away and say I dislike that is because I think it's a bit egotistical. It's kind of saying my train of thought, what I think about on a continual basis is important and people should know. The thing with art, and especially I love poetry, is that you craft something which people enjoy reading. You craft a piece of music which people enjoy listening to, which shows your skills as a musician. It plays to genre, it plays to themes. And I think if you've got something which is a train of thought, which is just evolving as you see fit, I think it's quite egotistical. It's almost saying to the people who are viewing it, you're going to like this because it's coming out of my head and I don't need to have a backstory and have plot and have twists and turns. You can just enjoy it. And I think that's one reason why I would dislike it.
And the art of writing is not just to sort of let your stream of consciousness flow. You've got to filter it. You've got to vet it. Got to hone it. Exactly. You've got to get a load of ideas out there and just pick the best ones and then think of a way of linking them together and, all sorts, really, haven't you? You can't just go do and scribble, done.
I think it is quite self-righteous, really, what he does. I would see it as, this is what I think you should be watching, because that's what an artist of any kind is saying, with their art, if they display it and they want it viewed, is I think you should look at this. And I think that's an important statement in itself. So what you're showing to the public shouldn't really be, I don't think it should be patronising or ridiculous, really, I suppose you could call it, with that Twin Peaks sort of thing where it was just running continually.
Aye, and I found myself losing interest, and it was just like, there was other things as well. It was this random woman with a log. She would hold a log, and she was like the log lady, and she was some sort of clairvoyant, I think.
Okay.
And there was there was this red room, and it was just like a room which was all red, which Agent Cooper saw in his dream and would visit in his dreams. And there was a dwarf who spoke backwards, just because, hey, he's speaking backwards. How cool is this?
Yeah, so that's like some sort of symbolic thing they use it, don't they? And like sort of like play music backwards and like hear the devil speak. So it's just kind of for the sake of it, he's done it,
But what they did there, they actually, I think they recorded the voices forward and then they reversed them and then they listened to how they sounded reversed and attempted to say them backwards, emulate how it sounded when reversed. And then they recorded that and reversed it so it says the right way round again, but it sounds all weird. And Radiohead did that for one of their songs, actually, like Spinning Plates.
That's cool.
Yeah, he actually sang the backwards version of it, if you know what I mean, then flipped it round and it just sounds all like weird. It's intelligible but weird.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting.
But it has an interesting effect, but it just seemed all just like for the sake of it. And he may as well have pulled out his plot ideas out of a hat as well. Loads of pieces of paper. Oh, he goes this way, or he does that, he does this, and just pick one out at random. Yeah, okay, this is going to happen now. Pick out another one. Fumble.
Yeah.
Right, no, this is what's going to happen next.
Yeah. So it is just literally ideas out of his head, which he thinks people should view, which I think is a bit egotistical. It's a bit self-serving, and I don't think I could watch it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against sort of surrealism, or I can see the value in it, and it's interesting. But then there comes a level of it which you think, I'm not going to sit here and watch episodes after episodes of this shit.
Yeah. And actually, that brings us to one other thing as well. One kind of bugbear of mine is kind of symbolism in anything, Art, to me, if it's visual, it's got to look good. And that's all that counts to me. I don't care what you're trying to say.
That is subjective, though, isn't it? Like, what looks good.
Exactly, yeah. And I've noticed I respond to colour a lot, I like very nice colour palettes, I love things like Van Gogh or Van Gogh, however you pronounce it, just the colour palette. It's, I love the way the colours just jump out at you. And it's got to look good. I don't care what it's trying to say. If it looks crap, then it's crap.
Well, I did read some reviews of David Lynch's work, and a lot of it is dark. A lot of it, the colours are very dim and dark. And then there was also a quote of David Lynch, and he said that I don't like colour. He said it's too real. This is, by the way, just going to highlight how much of an arse he probably is to talk to. He said, I don't use colour in my work because it's too real. I like to use dark colours because when you add black to something, it just gets more and more real. So make of that what you will. It sounds like a load of bullshit to me.
Interesting.
But he does not use colour in his work. He tries not to. He uses variations of dark colours.
Not quite true. I mean, Eraserhead was in black and white, but Twin Peaks and a lot of his films were actually in colour.
Yeah, that's
strangely enough. But props to him, though. I will give him that. They do look good. The films do look good. So it's nice to watch, but then, you can only stare at a nice looking film for 20 minutes before you realise you have no interest in the plot and you don't know who anybody is or what they're about, or you don't have anything invested in the actual story.
Yeah.
But yeah, his films do look quite good, actually.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good.
And like Blue Velvet as well, I've tried to like it. I've tried to like them all, and I get half hour into all of his films and just it occurs to me I have no idea what's going on.
You lose faith in it. Yeah. Well, I think I did read about, is it Purple Velvet?
Blue Velvet.
Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
Blue Velvet is a neo-noir film.
Is that what
it was called? Yeah, so it was noir, neo, so, a new version of it, or it's basically his interpretation of what noir should be.
Neo-noir, so new black then. So Orange is the new black?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bit
clever.
of a culture reference, slip that in there.
It was Dennis Hopper was in it, and he put on a really good performance, and he was genuinely frightening. He was a good actor. He could be nice, that cool dude in Easy Rider, or he could be Cooper in the Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
it was like evil, but kind of comic evil.
Yeah.
But he could also be genuinely scary.
Yeah.
But again, I just found myself not really caring.
Yeah, I think I find that with a lot of art and a lot of amateur artists when I see on Facebook, and I see people doing degrees in making things out of black bags and bits of tinsel, and I'm like, oh no, it just seems it's egotistical and it's self-serving. This is what I like, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get a degree for it. And I don't know, I just think it's a bit self-serving. I don't really like it.
I suppose when you're doing a degree in art or something, the only people you have to please are your examiners.
Yeah,
and they'll try to be as objective as possible, won't they? Whereas a member of the public might just go, I don't like it, therefore it's crap.
Yeah.
Whereas the tutors will actually look at it on a technical merit and award it accordingly.
Yeah.
Whether the man on the street likes it or not. So I suppose doing it for a degree is a safe way. Do you know what I mean? Because it's going to be judged more fairly.
Yeah.
Than
I suppose they're judging your interpretation, how you interpret something, so they give you a theme, for instance, on the colour blue or the ocean or something, and you've got to go away and then use materials to display what you think it means or whatever,
And,
so there is still an element of subjectivity in it, and how well you've interpreted it and how well you've displayed your whatever they've given you as your topic you've got to do, so
it's like they might not put it on their wall, but they'll still award it a good mark if they see you put effort into it, and you do have some talent, even if it might not be to their taste.
Yeah, definitely. This brings me neatly on to my next topic, actually, which, talking about David Lynch creating crimes against humanity with his films, I want to talk about humanity. This is one of my, I suppose it is a bugbear of mine, is the fact that people see humanity as essentially really bad, and essentially out to do each other down and destroy the planet. Obviously, there are really good arguments why that is true sometimes, and why, when we look at man-made global warming and our inability to want to fix it, we can see we're heading towards a cataclysm. Something is going to go wrong with our climate. We ignore it,
but who's prepared to go without electricity for a week? Even a week. Nobody would do it, would they?
No. Not
that it would make much difference, but
it just makes me wonder in that particular hypothetical scenario. We've got 3 weeks left before our climate kills us. At what point are we going to say, right now we have to give up the electricity and try and figure out how to do this?
And the rest. I mean,
but
fuel.
This does actually. I know from reading newspapers and from looking into policies of foreign policy and things like that in Europe. There is a lot compared to some places of governmental interest in improving the situation. So they are making sure industries conform to certain CO2 emission levels. There are steps in the right direction. There might not be enough in some people's opinion, but there is movement there. And I think that is the epitome of my argument of why humanity is essentially good, is that humanity sees only the bad and remembers the bad much more than it remembers the good or hears the good.
That is true, isn't it? That seems to be like a fundamental psychological thing. Like I heard something said, like if you have a bad customer experience, you'll tell more people about it than if you have a good one.
Exactly. I went on to Amazon reviews, and the most lengthy reviews with the most artistry in themselves actually are the ones which are really bad. People getting really on their high horse about something which is bad. Very few about how a product is good, and very few again of using flowery language of how good something is.
I think people just like to bitch, don't they? I mean, look at me on David Lynch. I loved it. And I could go on and on and on if you wanted to.
Yeah, it is true. Essentially, we are all bitches, We all love to get around a cup of coffee and absolutely slate something.
Yeah, gossip, bitch, moan.
Yeah, and if you meet someone, it's true, isn't it? If you meet someone on the street and you can have a moan together, then you've solidified together, you've gelled really well,
That is a great rapport builder, isn't it? If you both hate something, it's like, oh, you hate that, so do I.
Yeah.
let's slag it off.
Yeah.
Over a beer.
I suppose it's going to be as strong as meeting someone who's got the same interest as you to the same level, you know? If you meet someone with a passion for something, you know, it's going to be a real bonding experience. But it's exactly the same if you dislike something that much, you know?
Yeah, passion works both ways.
Yeah, it does. It does. So, Sam, your opinion of humanity, where would you put us? Are we bad, good? Are we destroying? Are we creating? What are we?
Well, I don't know. I think maybe not on a... you can separate like the human side of, well, humanity, you know, the individual person, and then the sort of interests. Like, you know, big companies, they might do bad things because they've got to keep on making profit, you know. And to be honest, like, I'm quite cynical about corporations because I think they will do anything to make money, even if it's illegal. As long as they don't get found out, they'll do it. You know, they'll apologize, revamp their policies, whatever.
Yeah.
But then they'll be discovered to do something again. But the individuals behind it might be perfectly nice people, but they've got to please the shareholders.
Yeah.
They've got to keep the machine running, you know.
So in other words, even though the machine is made of individuals, it's the machine itself which is destroying. The individuals might not want that, you know?
Exactly.
But then it takes a minority of individuals, a large minority, to change what the machine does, you know? So I think that's why it's important to have a positive attitude, especially towards the environment and stuff like that, and know that things can change and not to give up on pushing for change, you know?
It's going to be a slow thing, though, isn't it? I mean, the whole green thing has been... Well, I remember when I was a kid in the 80s, you know, that's when everyone first started really going on about being green and the environment. You know, people would come to the school and talk to us about it, and the teachers would be, you know, they coined the phrase litter bug, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, and they'd be like, don't be a litter bug. Because I remember when I was like quite young in the sort of early to mid 80s, it was quite socially acceptable to just chuck rubbish, you know, anywhere. Throw it on the street and just leave it there. People used to do it all the time.
If you're caught doing it, you get fined, but also socially, it's looked at really badly, you know?
Yeah,
if you throw something out the car window or whatever, people are like, you can't do that, you know? It's wrong, and it does bore them, which is good, you know? I can see that work.
I know. I've seen like people go down Commercial Road in Pill and they just like chuck a whole takeaway out the window, and I saw that, and I was actually quite incensed. Like, how can you disrespect your own fucking street?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah,
it might not be in their street, but you know what I mean. Any street.
No. Well, it's our street. You're throwing rubbish into my footway, into my driving way, you know. And I think that's where I would take up the thing that this is my world as well. You're littering in my world. I wouldn't come into your garden and throw litter around it, you know. So why do you think you can throw litter on the street? Because it's all our street, you know.
I do tend to look down on people who litter. You know, sometimes I've got on with people and then I see them just like throw a crisp packet on the floor, and I just think, I don't like you as much anymore.
Yeah, it's the ultimate form of laziness, isn't it, really? Because there's so many bins, public bins, your own bins, green bins. There's someone's bin down the street every other house, you know? Yeah, exactly. It's just ultimate laziness, isn't it,
if there's not one in the vicinity, just put it in your back pocket, you know? What's a crisp packet in your back pocket going to do?
Until you next get to a bin. Exactly, yeah.
I do. Suck it up, bitches.
I know. But we are bitching about humanity, and I do want to show the good about humanity. And I think, although humans are capable of some of the worst things in the world, you know, torture, inventing ways of harming people, mass ways of harming people, like weapons and that sort of thing, they're also the nicest and altruistic of the animals. You know, we are all, like you said the day we talked about this, we're social animals, but we are the most social animal. We are the only animal which will sacrifice to the level we can sometimes for other people, you know?
That's true. I mean,
think of a mother who will sacrifice herself totally, or a mother and father, just to save their young, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah. There is an ultimate good there as well.
Whereas in the animal kingdom, it's more like the opposite, isn't it? The mother, well, sometimes the mother, like with hamsters and things, the mother will eat the babies just because it's been touched by some other organism that they can smell on it and goes, oh, I don't like you anymore. Yeah. But I think most animals will save themselves and then just have more babies if it comes to that, you know?
I mean, it is true. Animals which are of a breeding age are much more likely to destroy their young or push young out, which are not going to grow as well as the others. For instance, if there are small young in a bird's nest, then the other chicks will eat the smaller bird.
Really?
Yeah, because it saves resources. The mother doesn't have to hunt to feed it, and the little bird probably wouldn't have survived as well as the bigger birds, the babies. So it is purely Darwinism, you know. And I think that's one of our biggest things is we've outgrown Darwinism in its essential sense, and we can choose to do the thing which puts us down, you know, or it puts us a loss. And I think that's one of the greatest things about humanity is we can choose to lose out.
Yeah.
Whereas animals, essentially, my dog will never choose to lose out. My dog will never will. You know, he always does get the upper hand. He always will get that extra treat. He always will get the food off the table, and you know, he always gets his own food. And you know, he wouldn't think twice about taking my food off me if he was hungry, or just anyway, because our dogs are quite greedy and they'll eat you when they're full.
And you know, they don't even limit themselves to food, do they? You know, they'll eat a videotape, a tennis ball.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. There is no limit there. You know, they don't see stuff as yours, and you know, I shouldn't really do it. Conscience. They have one thing: eat.
What I was going to say is, animals, apart from humans, they have no control over their impulses. They have no ability to see beyond the immediate, you know. If a dog wants to eat now, it will eat now. It will eat all its food now. It won't think, right, well, I'll have none tomorrow. You know, and it can't control its instinct or impulses. If it gets an impulse to do something, it will do it. You know, if it wants to attack something, it will. It will. Whereas a human, we might want to beat someone up or whatever if they piss us off, but we'll think, right, if I do this, it might feel good now, but I might get thrown in prison. You know, I might not be able to get a job. Yeah. You know, you think that out, don't you? Yeah. We're the only animal who can do that. And look at the environment. Animals don't give a toss about the environment. No. They'll fucking eat themselves to extinction.
Yeah, they will, and they have in the past. You know, there are animals which have done it. You know, and I think that is a really important point about our ecosystem, is that it's all self-supporting, but it's also selfish, you know? If animals could have mini power stations and mini this and that and conveyor belts with food coming down, they would, and they would do it to a higher level than we would.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we, like you said, we have got control over our impulses. We have got a choice of our impulses. And one of the biggest ones we choose to do is have kids or not, you know? The biggest point about animals is to reproduce, pass on your genetics, you know? But we choose more times than not to not have children, you know? We have contraception. Some of us ridiculously practice abstinence, you know, so we are able to override those impulses and our basic instincts are telling us. And I think that's what makes us great, one of the great animals.
And can you imagine the state we'd be in if every time we had sex, we had a baby out of it? I know. Every single time. Can you imagine it?
Yeah.
It would just be bedlam,
it would be a baby every 9 months. Practically, wouldn't it?
Much,
you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to draw us to a close there. We'll have to leave it.
Yeah, this is because, before we start talking about the prospect of lots of dead babies because nobody can care for them.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for joining us for the pilot episode. We hope you'll join us for the next one. I've been Sam, and my co-host has also been Sam.
I have, haven't I?
Yeah, we've both been very Sam. We've both been very Sam. Join us next time when we're going to be talking about 2 new fresh topics. Always interesting, always a bit light as well. We're going to be talking about Simply Red.
That's going to be my underrated one.
Yeah, and my overrated topic I'm going to talk about is camp. Not as in the leisure activity, but the behaviour or the effect, as we could call it. Campness, yes. We're going to be talking about camp. We're going to be talking about campness. Okay, then. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.